happened yesterday. Two Republican Trump appointee attorney generals, Jeff Sessions and William Barr, and their cover-up of my son's Bijan's murder, and a conservative federal judge, Cloud Hilton, doing everything in their power to keep Bijan's case from ever seeing the light of day in a trial. We are here today because we are outraged. We are outraged and disgusted by our own newly elected Virginia Attorney General, Republican Trump supporter, Miyares, withdrawal of Bijan's murder case, which was filed by his own Fairfax County prosecutors and backed by the previous Virginia Attorney General, Mark Herring. 4.5 years of cover-up, hearings, investigations, evidence, depositions, grand jury, and I'm here standing in front of you fighting my own Virginia Attorney General. Why? Why does this case never goes to trial? I tell you why. The cover-up by the Chief Moynihan and Chief McLean of Park Police and their investigators and seasoned corrupt cops from the minutes after Bijan's murder to the racist union head and members and their powerful connections to corrupt judges and AGs. Department of Interior fired Amaya and Vineyard after 4 years, and Park Police racist union is still fighting their termination. We are here to ask the appeal court not to accept the dismissal of Bijan's case by Miyares. We are here to plead with Attorney General Merrick Garland to reopen Bijan's murder case based on deposition and findings through our civil case, and to look into misconduct of Attorney General Miyares and his unusual, politically driven and impeachable withdrawal of Bijan's murder case. The only evidence that Attorney General Bill Barr, Jeff Sessions, and our own Virginia Attorney General have for these murderers is their supremacy clause. Nothing else. Nobody talks about the fact that they illegally chased Bijan. They went through and above illegally, and they shot him 10 times, and we are standing here letting them get away on supremacy clause, not any other defense, just because they're federal officers. I am here to plead with anyone who can hear me to please do not dismiss this case. On September 17th, we will have a rally and also a celebration for Bijan's 30th birthday on Lincoln Memorial in the afternoon. What was supposed to be a celebration is going to be another event like this, pleading, please, Department of Justice, Merrick Garland, do the right thing and indict these officers and reopen Bijan's case. Thank you very much for everyone for being here. Thank you. I'm going to have my husband James Ghaisar, Bijan's father, say a few words.
Hello. Today is the day 1618 that my son Bijan, who was a victim of a hit and run, was chased by two out-of-control U.S. Park Police officers and within 15 minutes was executed military style and shot 10 times, 4 of it to his head, based on the video released by the Fairfax County. After 2 years of waiting, the Justice Department, under the reign of Bill Barr and Trump, decided not to prosecute the officers and close the case. Later, the Fairfax County Commonwealth Attorney Office filed manslaughter charges against the officers with a grand jury verdict, and then the Virginia Attorney General joined the case and it became a Virginia versus federal, which the federal judge sided with the supremacy clause against Virginia. However, Mark Herring, the former Virginia Attorney General, planned and did file an appeal with the Fourth Circuit Court on his last day in office. In January, Mark Herring lost his seat to Jason Miyares, a Republican hardcore Trumpy who became the new Virginia Attorney General, and yesterday he filed with the Fourth Circuit Court to dismiss the case without even consulting with Steve Descano, the Fairfax Commonwealth Attorney. Over a month ago, 9 state attorney generals and DC Attorney General filed in support of Fairfax County. But we learned that 2 days ago, Bill Barr also filed with the Fourth Circuit Court requesting dismissal of the case. I beg everyone who is watching me to put yourself for a few seconds in my sad life that I have endured 4 years and 5 months, and judge for yourself that if your family member is killed by U.S. Park Police, you have no right to sue them criminally and as a U.S. citizen. And then the civil rights division of a U.S. Department of Justice can only prosecute the case, and in our case, it did not, because the department was run by Trump Republicans and Bill Barr. Since the crime occurred in Fairfax County, Fairfax could also prosecute, and they did so, file charges, and the state of Virginia joined Fairfax. Now, the case is asked to be dismissed because a hardcore Republican has become an Attorney General of Virginia. Do you call this process democratic, or we live in a totalitarian regime and we shouldn't care? We have reached out to the U.S. senators and U.S. member of Congress for help. We have been to the U.S. Congress pushing for a law to require park police to wear body camera like most state and local police force. Our intent has been to save other innocents' life, and so far, no progress. The new DC Chief of U.S. Park Police, Pamela Smith, promised that by the end of 2021, the DC U.S. Park Police would be wearing body camera. That did not happen, and she is now retired. You tell me whether we live in a democracy or a corrupt system. I beg you to tell me, what would you do if you had lost a most caring, loving son to police brutality and have done everything imaginable in legal fashion and no justice after 4.5 years? If you can't do anything, please do.
We're going to be joined by Scott Surovell, Senator of Virginia.
Thank you, Kelly. So my name is Scott Surovell. I'm a state senator for the 36th Senate District in Virginia. And I've been working with the Ghaisar family now since the day this happened, because Bijan was murdered about 6 houses away from where I live. Came home from work that night, saw police lights at the end of the street. I thought maybe there'd just been a collision at the end of Alexandria Avenue. Later that night, I was checking out the news and realized that there'd been a shooting at the end of the street. And I can't tell you how deeply this incident, this tragic incident, avoidable incident, affected my community. But the main reason I'm here today is because of how upset I am and how disappointed I am, how disturbed I am by the failure of the Attorney General of Virginia to follow Virginia law, to listen to the victims of crime, and to hold people accountable, which is something he ran on. You know, they say in the politics business that if you want to do something that's unpopular, you do it on a Friday. Friday, yesterday, at about 6 o'clock at night, I found out what the Attorney General had filed with the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. I was walking around, I was at a festival earlier today. I saw many constituents, and I asked them if they had heard about what happened. Not a single person had heard about this yet, because this happened on a Friday. And I think as news of this gets out, people are going to be highly disturbed. I also want to make sure the record's clear about a couple things before I talk about our Attorney General. I think it's important to remember a lot of this might be framed in terms of some of the things the Attorney General has said about our Fairfax County Commonwealth Attorney. This prosecution was initiated by the former Fairfax County Commonwealth Attorney. He told the papers that he had tried to get an indictment, but the grand jury didn't have time to meet before he left office. Steve Descano took it on afterwards, after Ray Morrow handed the file over to him and followed through on what Ray Morrow had started. So this is not some kind of a little petty thing between Steve Descano and Attorney General Miyares. Ray Morrow, a very well-regarded, long-time prosecutor with an excellent reputation, is the one who started this investigation. I also just want to note that we've had many press conferences here, and there have been Republicans, elected officials, who have stood with us in their outrage over what's occurred in this situation. This is not an entirely partisan situation. Now, with regard to the Attorney General, the reason I'm disappointed and shocked by his behavior is because what he did yesterday stands completely 100% at odds with exactly what he promised Virginians that he was going to do once he became Virginia's Attorney General. As he framed it, Virginia's Chief Crime Prevention Officer or something like that, the new sheriff in town. He told us that he was going to focus on violent crime. He said he was going to focus on crimes involving guns. He said he was going to prosecute crimes where local prosecutors chose not to prosecute. He never once said he was going to come in and undo a prosecution that a local prosecutor tried to prosecute. He said he was going to prosecute crimes that were not being prosecuted. And he also said he was going to look out for victims. I just want to show you a couple things. I took this off his website this morning. It says, Jason Miyares will keep Virginia safe and secure. He will punish criminals and protect victims. He says protect victims right there, and it's on his website today. He said he's going to protect victims, and I'm standing out here with 2 victims. He said the victims of violent crimes are too often ignored or forgotten in Richmond. Well, guess what just happened yesterday? I want to read to you an op-ed that the Attorney General published in the Virginian Pilot back in December, about 2 weeks before he took his oath of office. The title of his op-ed, Opinion, the new Attorney General will put victims first in the fight against crime. That's what he wrote. I'm just going to quote you a couple sentences out of this. He talks about the definition of insanity, and he said ignoring victims and then expecting our communities to be safer is insane. I tell you what, my community does not feel any safer whatsoever when a young 20-something-year-old unarmed accountant can be shot 4 times in the head 6 blocks from my house. My community does not feel any safer whatsoever by that decision that happened yesterday, by his behavior. For people to be safe, there has to be accountability when people are murdered, and not the government turning its head the other way. He also wrote, the far left social justice Commonwealth attorneys might think they're doing the right thing by refusing to prosecute certain crimes, but the consequences of their actions speak for themselves. The consequences of his actions yesterday speak for themselves. Basically, he sent the message to law enforcement that you can shoot unarmed crime victims 4 times in the head and you're not going to get prosecuted in Virginia. That's the message it sends. I mean, this crime was indicted by a group of Fairfax County residents who heard evidence, who thought there was enough for a prosecution to commence, and the Attorney General substituted his judgment for the judgment of Fairfax County's grand jurors in dropping this case, instead of letting a jury of their peers decide whether crime could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not what he campaigned on. He also wrote, if a Commonwealth attorney decides not to do his or her job, not to prosecute certain crimes, and the chief law enforcement officer wants a second opinion, my office is there to help. Well, where was he to help yesterday? He's not there to help. And I want to tell you the last thing he wrote in his last paragraph. He said, as a former prosecutor, I have held the hands of victims. And my mission as Attorney General is to do everything to give voices to victims and to support policies that will put criminals behind bars. Where was that yesterday? I also just want to point out to you all the Virginia Code. Back in the mid-1990s, we adopted the Virginia Crime Victim and Witness Rights Act. Section 19.2, 11.1 of the Code of Virginia specifically says that in any felony case, the attorney for the Commonwealth, that's in Virginia, that's the prosecutor, upon the victim's written request, which has happened in this case, shall consult with the victim, either verbally or in writing, to obtain the victim's views about the disposition of a case, including the victim's views concerning dismissal. Were the Ghaisars consulted about this dismissal? No. Have they been communicated with by the Attorney General a single minute? Have you even gotten an email from him asking for input since he came into office now 6 months ago? No. Has Virginia law been followed? Absolutely not. And how can we expect our government to follow the law when our chief law enforcement officer, the chief so-called prosecutor, the new sheriff in town, won't even follow the law in Virginia? What happened yesterday is outrageous, it's illegal, and I hope the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals does not drop the case because Virginia law has not been followed, the proper processes have not been followed for the Attorney General to exercise his discretion the way he chose to do it. And I really truly hope that after that Merrick Garland figures out that Virginia doesn't know how to prosecute this case, and that the federal government needs to change its mind and come back in and get involved in this situation, because in Virginia we can't even follow our own laws. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much. Whew. If anyone has any questions, we can answer questions.
Can you provide a written request for notice to the Attorney General, as Scott just said?
With Merrick Garland? With
Virginia people.
No. No, we have not. About Bijan? I've talked about Bijan so many times. I think the fact that Bijan was a caring, inclusive, loyal, loving, sophisticated, super handsome, nice young man, and the fact that he would never, ever disrespect law enforcement or authority, and the fact that I want everyone to know about Bijan is that Bijan would never, ever run from law enforcement. The only reason he left the stops was because of the harassment and the hunting by these unlawful actions by these officers. I am very sure of that. And unfortunately, we haven't got a chance to be in court to talk about it. But yes, to my eyes and everyone who knows Bijan, that some are here, he was perfect.
And let me add to this that my son, his grandfather, Kelly's father, was a chief of police in our home country. So he grew up with a respect for the police force, and it is unimaginable that he would do something to hurt the police at all. But the way he was treated, the way he was stopped with a gun to his head, I don't know what I would have done if I were in his place.
I also would like to make a personal note to AJ Barr and our own Attorney General in Virginia that you have failed us. You have failed the citizens and people you're supposed to protect. You did not defend the victim. You defended the murderers under the supremacy clause, period. And you're going to have to live with that every day of your life. You are going to go to bed thinking about how you took away our rights, Bijan's rights, and how you made everybody disappointed and how miserable you are. Every night, don't forget us, because we will remember you. We will keep you in our not good prayers every single day.